So we heard Jesus say a disciple will become like their teacher, right? And when I was reading that this past week, memory popped in my mind, and it must have been a pretty significant event at the time because it happened over 30 years ago, and I still remember it. So back in the 90s, when I worked in the factories at Buick, we had a new manager that showed up, and he always wore a sweater vest. And there was nothing wrong with the sweater vest. Anybody here have a sweater vest on? Okay. Well, there's nothing wrong with it, but it just set him apart from all the other men, managers, who wore suits and ties. And it didn't take long for me to notice that the other men I worked with started to wear sweater vests. And some looked good in them, some not so good. And I don't think it was a fashion statement at the time because I didn't have one. My wife didn't buy me one, so it must just be a thing. But it was funny to me how these men wanted to be like the boss, even so much as to dress like him. So I wonder if that's what Jesus had in mind when he said, every disciple will become like their leader, like their teacher. Probably a little bit of truth in that, but probably not totally true. So we will become like our teacher. See who it is we're really following. And I challenge you to do this at home, but I warn you, it could be earth-shattering for you, right? We can check to see who we're really following by monitoring our speech. You know, in the first reading it said, speech discloses the bent of one's mind. So the things we're talking about are what are on our mind. And Jesus said, from the fullness of one's heart, the mouth speaks. So the stuff we're talking about, the stuff we're saying is on our heart. So we can kind of gauge who we're following, how we're following, by just monitoring our speech. So I challenge you, when you go home, reflect on the past couple of days and on what you said, what you texted, what you posted on social media, how you answered an email, and all that stuff. And if you have trouble doing that and you're married, ask your spouse to help you out. I'm fortunate because my wife is more like Jesus than I am. So I have somebody to give something to say, would you look at this first before I send it? And we make it sound more like Jesus. Anyway, so you can do that. You can check your speech. And if we really are following Jesus, if we really are getting to know him more and more and more, eventually our hearts and our minds become more like his. And then the things we say will be more like the things he says. But you should also know that sometimes in the heat of the moment, emotions just take over, right? And saying things like Jesus would or that he would can be really hard to do because it's like we're out of control. So sometimes somebody we love can betray us. Anybody have that happen? That hurts. And Jesus was betrayed by somebody he loved, by one of his own disciples. But his response was not to fight back. His response was just to kind of hand himself over to the soldiers that came to arrest him when he was in the garden. So as we become more and more like Jesus, in those times that we feel that we've been betrayed, we can shift our focus off of ourselves, off of our disbelief, off of our anger, off of our desire for revenge. And when we speak, we will speak of forgiveness, reconciliation, and we'll be able to move on with life. And there are times when somebody we love will blame us for all the misfortunes in their life. Well, Jesus was falsely accused too, but his response was not to build a case to justify his positions and all his actions. Instead, he was just a witness to truth. So as we become more and more like Jesus, and we face those times that we are blamed for something unjustly, we'll be able to set aside our self-righteousness, refrain from trying to build a case to justify our position, to prove somebody wrong, to shout them down and cause division. Instead, we will be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. And when we do speak, we will speak the truth, but it will be spoken with mercy and tenderness and love for the person we're with. And it'll work because we listened first. And then there are times in our life where we can feel just overburdened. So as we become more and more like Jesus, when we feel those points in our life where we are just overburdened, overwhelmed, we will be able to set aside our pride, to get rid of that thinking of, I got this, I don't need anybody's help. And instead, we will acknowledge our weakness. And in our humility, we will accept the help that God sends us through other people. And when we speak with gratitude and thankfulness. And then there are some things in our life that just need to die. Jesus died. And before he did, he commended his spirit to his Father. He trusted everything to God, his Father. So as we become more and more like Jesus, we will become aware of those things in our life that just need to die. And we will let go of things like need for control, need for recognition. And we will just turn our lives over in complete trust to God. God is all we need. And when we speak, it will be less and less and less about ourselves and with more compassion to the people we are with. So out of all these things that can be part of our life, being betrayed, blamed, overburdened, death, out of all those things, something new and even something beautiful can result because we faced them. Jesus faced all that. And Jesus rose to new life. His suffering, his death led to resurrection. So as we become more and more like Jesus, we have a new hope, a renewed hope in the resurrection, in new life. And it is that hope that encourages us to face whatever it is the world wants to bring our way. And it is that hope that inspires us so that we can speak forgiveness, reconciliation, mercy, tenderness, love, gratitude, thankfulness, and compassion. Because of that hope, we know that whatever is going on, something new is in store for us. So we will become like our teacher. And today, Jesus gives you a choice. Go to him, listen to his words, and act on them and become like him, or follow somebody else and become like them. So the decision is yours today. Who are you going to follow?